there. We're on the air, and welcome to another podcast of Indigenous Roots and Hoots, sponsored by the Legacy of Hope Foundation. I'm your host, Gordon Spence, and today my guest is Allan Makhagak. Allan is a former negotiator for the Nunavut Land Claim Settlement. He's a residential school survivor, comes from Cambridge Bay, Nunavut. He is also the former president of the Kitikmeot Inuit Association, former executive director of the Constitutional Forum for Nunavut, for the creation of Nunavut. Allan is also a musician and a songwriter. And currently he's an interpreter and translator for the Nunavut legislature. Allan also sits on the Nunavut Impact Review Board. He has 5 children, 14 grandchildren. Hello, Allan, and welcome to Roots and Hoots.
I was born in Bathurst Inlet, an old outpost camp just south of Cambridge Bay. Was sent off to residential school at five years old to Nunavut for elementary and junior high school, and then took my high schooling in Akaitcho Hall in Yellowknife. From there, I began to serve the Inuit of Kitikmeot upon my graduation from Yellowknife. And that's where I really got my training to work with the communities and to help them develop what they need from the government. And that's basically where I started all my work with people.
I understand you attended residential school. Can you talk a bit about that, where you attended? And you said Akaitcho Hall in Yellowknife. Tell us a little bit about the environment. What was it like going to residential school? Talk a little bit about, your routine.
Well, the younger days, when I went to Stringer Hall in Nunavut, the residence was a bit more stricter because they knew that we were from all over the north, and a lot of us could not speak English very well. So the rules and regulations to run residence and to make sure that we don't pass on sicknesses and whatnot to each other. Those were my early days, and the hardship that we went through because we could not go home at Christmas time or Easter time because we were too far away to be sent home for 2-week breaks. So the first 10 years were a bit tough, but the last high school years were a bit more easier because I had moved to Yellowknife, which was Akaitcho Hall residence there for high school and vocational students that wanted to finish their schooling, and I was able to go home for Christmas or Easter or some short break. So those were kind of nice to break the ice. But the important thing that we had learned in those days was that we were not to speak our own mother tongue because the supervisors, the teachers, and could not speak our languages, so they thought we were talking about them or teasing somebody that we could not speak other languages other than English. And that's where a lot of us sort of began to lose our first language. When you speak English all the time, every day, day in, day out, at the residence, then you can't forget your language very quickly. But I was fortunate to have parents and grandparents who were strong enough to guide me through to keep my mother tongue intact and for me to be able to continue to understand the language of my parents, who were unilingual Inuit, could not speak a word of English. Those were the hardships that we went through, but I think the most important thing is being taken away from your parents at such a young age. You learn to adapt to be by yourself. You learn to work by yourself, and at the same time, where you can, you learn to hang around with buddies that you trust and other kids that you can learn from other cultures, because we had both residents, we had both Inuit, Dene, Métis and northern residents who had moved to the north, students that were from all different cultures. And I think that's where I began to build a strong trust in other cultures other than my own.
Yeah, how was the environment in terms of talking about like the residence environment? I know that when I went to residential school, it was all Cree kids, and yours is different. You were in an environment where in a residence where there were Métis and Dene First Nations children, and you're an Inuk. So how was that? Was that difficult? Was there any, like, in some schools a lot of bullying? Did any of that stuff go on there?
I think for some of the weaker students who were easily picked on by others in a ways, I think they had the hardest time adapting to finding friends and classmates that they can hang around with like I did. Like sports was my grace, where I played a lot of sports just to keep myself out of study periods and to see if I can continue to improve myself in sports that were becoming a big part of our schooling, especially if you wanted to travel outside of your communities to attend basketball tournaments, soccer tournaments, or other Arctic Winter Games, Canada Winter Games, Summer Games, those kinds of events. We wanted to get involved in those, and we had a chance to be involved in teams if we wanted to be involved in traveling with other athletes to other events. I think that was the teaching ground for me, is that our superintendent of our residence at Stringer Hall, mostly in Inuvik, had very strong religious background, even though he was a former World War II veteran. He taught a lot of us to work together, the Inuit, the Dene, the Métis, and the white kids who were attending the residence with us to be able to work together, to be able to function together, and to not go against each other just because we were from different cultures. But I think that was a fortunate point for those of us who went to the Anglican residence as compared to what we have heard from the Roman Catholic residential school. So from that, I think we were fortunate to be able to have that kind of gathering that superintendents of schools insisted that we work together to survive our year.
I know sports in these residential schools was really a form of escape for many of us. It's lucky, I guess it's fortunate that we had sports and give us an opportunity to travel and see other schools, residences, and meet other people. Your diet must have changed quite a bit going to residential school. How did you cope with eating a totally different type of food?
It was a bit hard to adapt to the diet that we had been given, basically because there were not too many fresh produce or not too many fresh meats, because that be all flown in or come up on the annual sea lift to Inuvik, to the north, especially where there are not that many country food to begin with at the residence we were attending. So we had a lot of prepared foods that were packages that we were getting used to, that we thought were the real thing until we graduated from schools, that we found out that there was real milk and there was real meat and there was real potatoes rather than man-made packages that we were so used to at the residence, just because the residence was not, as I mentioned, not getting many fresh produce or fresh meats to service healthy meals. And I think that's where a lot of us got lean and mean and what our parents called unhealthy, because we weren't fat like them and healthy from eating country food all the time. But I think we sort of adapted to that meal quickly as we all got into the Western style food that we're so familiar with today.
Yeah, just a clarification. Country food, when you say country food, you're talking about fish and caribou and that sort of stuff, right?
That's right. We were not served any caribou, moose meat, or char, or whitefish that other community members around Inuvik were enjoying every day. We were served prepackaged foods all the time.
What about discipline when children got into trouble?
If you were to get into a fight with another student over something, then you were both confined to barracks, so-called C beat, for a week. You get up, you go have your meals, and then you go to school, and you go right back to your residence after school, rather than being able to play out with your other classmates and schoolmates, or because the residences were separated into girls and boys section, I could not see my sisters for a couple of weeks because I was confined to barracks, and I could not visit or go out and do any normal stuff the kids were used to. There were not that many students sent home, especially the violent ones. I think were sort of kept in isolation to work with them individually, to work out their anger and to work out their frustration that they were feeling at the time, that they were acting out their aggression to other students and to supervisors and to teachers. A lot of that was happening, and certainly sometimes you hear schoolmates or classmates passing away, and you wonder what those deaths were from, but we never heard anything from their deaths, exactly what happened, just because I think the residents wanted to make sure that we did not get too sad about the situation or to get too homesick to not be able to do our schoolwork anymore. So those are kinds of things that we were disciplined with. And if we were to talk our own language in classroom, we were either sent back to our residence or we were sent to what they call CB room, compound room, where students that need to be disciplined had to spend some time in the afternoons or daytime thing.
Was there any religious teachings in the residential school that you attended?
Not at the school, but the residence itself, where we stayed at Stringer Hall. We had chapel service every night to go through the Bible for those of us who were not ordained into the Christian world. We were given a lot of opportunities to attend Bible schools, to attend religious classes, and there would be two compulsory church sessions on Sunday, one in the morning and one in the evening, so that those were all the religious rituals that we went through during our early school years. But in our high school, those parts were not compulsory. We did not have to attend any of the residence or religious classes after that. So we were fortunate to be able to not have religion shoved down our throats all the time. Especially, we had already spent the first 10 years of our young lives learning the Bible in and out, just because that was the theme of our assimilation process to the Christian world. And I think that those were the teachings that were given to us during our young days.
You know, you're part of the Nunavut Impact Review Board. The board that's created, was it created by the Nunavut Land Claims Settlement, or was this created by the Nunavut government?
The institution of public governments, which Nunavut Impact Review Board is one of, is created under the Nunavut Land Claims Agreement to protect our lands, resources, environment, and waters, and our wildlife. We work alongside other institutions of public government, such as the Planning Commission, the Water Board, the Nunavut Wildlife Management Board, Surface Rights Tribunal. Those institutions look after all the environmental regulatory agencies for Nunavut under our land claims agreement that works to maintain the stability of environment for long-term benefit of our Inuit, because you have to understand that 40% of our population are still a full-time hunter-gatherer society, and we have to maintain that the environment, the lands and resources be kept clean to ensure that the wildlife continues to return upon their annual cycle or annual migration. And those are the kinds of issues that we are dealing with, including trying to grapple with climate change issue. The climate change is fast becoming a big norm up north, where the seasons are in some areas getting longer, in some areas are getting shorter. So we have to make sure that the climate continues to be in our favor for our harvesters and our hunter-gatherers.
You come from the high Arctic region of Canada. Speaking of climate change, it's affecting the world and our own environment today. How is this impacting the Arctic and the lifestyle there?
One thing that we are starting to notice is that our winters are getting much more colder, and it seems to be much more bitter ice, crystal cold, more than it usually has in the past. We recognize that the climate is changing fast, and our summers are getting longer. Certainly our springs are getting more wilder in terms of the weather and the breakup of our ice in the rivers and lakes and our oceans. They're becoming more unpredictable. And our fall sessions, the cold seems to be taking a little bit longer to move from the summer to the winter. So the ice is not getting thick enough or fast enough for our harvesters to be able to travel out on the land. So we are losing machines, we are losing human lives to some of these ice conditions that are changing so fast, that our harvesters have to make sure that they are working very closely with our elders to know that these climate changes can affect our harvesting practices and our normal out on the land travels. So these are the kinds of things that we are trying to grapple with and to be able to put into legislation so that our people know exactly what can help them in terms of harvesting rates that they have been able to retain in their land claims agreement, and to be able to use the land for those purposes as much as possible.
I understand also that there's been a decline in the population of caribou, especially in the Eastern Arctic. There's also debate, I guess you could say, about the decline in polar bears population. What's your opinion on this and how is climate change affecting populations of the various animal species?
In terms of the land animals, we are starting to notice, especially in caribou and muskox, that they are beginning to get a lot more diseases such as brucellosis, trichinosis, and other illnesses that they never had before, just because the climate is warming up so fast with them that certain different kinds of bugs that never grew up north before are starting to be found amongst our animals that we catch. And we are starting to get concerned that more of the climate changes that are going to affect the animals that we depend on today are also increasing by other species of animals that never went to the Arctic coast before, such as grizzly bears, moose, beaver, sharks. All of those different species of animals are starting to pop up now in the Arctic coast. I think those are very dangerous to the existing population, just because we are very cognizant of species of invasion that can easily happen, especially with our Arctic char. If we get too much salmon in our rivers, they are much more vicious than Arctic char, so they can chase away the char very quickly if we allow salmon to grow in population quickly up north. Those are the specialty foods that we say that we notice that the changing diets of our land animals also is starting to increase some of the population and decreasing some of the population, just because it varies on how the survival of these animals can take this climate change.
What about the bird species? I know like a lot of birds, like thousands of birds migrate to the Arctic every year. Have you noticed any difference in numbers or species of birds, migratory birds?
They fluctuate. We noticed in the last 20 years that we have been studying migratory birds for harvesting reasons. We noticed that the different variety of geese populations are certainly increasing to such large numbers that Inuit harvesters are getting a bit worried that they may eat out all the vegetation with the short summer stay that they come up here for. So they are beginning to advise us to harvest geese as much as possible to keep the population stable and to be able to maintain the population so that we don't have an explosion such as we've had in the past, where they got out of control and just too many flocks were flying into a certain area that they were eating out all the grasslands and all marshy areas that were normally used by other birds and species that depend on those marshes and whatnot. So in that area, I think the bird population is healthy. I think we are not too concerned about the migratory bird population, but as they are continuing to increase and more of these species are beginning to arrive, different kinds of diets that the Inuit are beginning to taste in their food.
What about the quotas on caribou? You come from kind of the western part of Nunavut, the high Arctic region, Cambridge Bay. Do you have, I know there's a lot of caribou out that way. Do you have quotas on caribou, polar bear, and muskox?
The only caribou herd that we have under quota at the moment is the Bathurst Inlet herd, because we share that big herd with our Dene friends to the south of us in the Northwest Territories. It's the same species that migrates down to northern Saskatchewan, northern Alberta in the wintertime and migrates up to our coast in summertime. We put that on a quota because when we used to have such large populations, such as 300,000 on our herd, dropping down to 90,000 in a couple of years, then you have to wonder what is going on. So we brought in some caribou biologists to do a complete study on what was happening. One theory was that a lot of sicknesses were happening amongst some of the caribou because of new bugs arriving up to the north, and also the changing of the rivers during their migration. Sometimes there's just too much water where they usually cross. So we've had mass caribou death in some areas where the harvesters in certain areas have found large numbers of caribou dying along the rivers just because the river systems were a bit too fast and hard at the moment, or just too deep for them to be able to cross the rivers that they usually migrate through. The polar bear, we now have a healthy quota in every region just because the polar bear population is healthy. Even though they are beginning to lose a lot of ice just because of the climate change, we are starting to notice that a lot of polar bear are beginning to hang out at the garbage dumps and some of the camping areas where people leave their harvest. We also have new quota systems for animals that we never had before, such as beluga in the western western Nunavut. We've never had beluga or narwhals before, so we are beginning to include those in our harvest practices. And the other areas that we've never had quota or harvesting practices with are grizzly bears, black bears, and moose. So we're beginning to get our wildlife management boards in various regions to begin to address some of those harvesting practices that they can allow their local harvesters to enjoy.
Excellent, Alan. I've been talking to Allan Makhagak. He's an Inuk from the western part of Nunavut, a place called Cambridge Bay. Alan is a member of the NERB, for the Nunavut Impact Review Board. Alan, you're also a musician. Let's kind of gear down here a little bit and talk about something else. We're getting close to the end of this podcast, so just a couple of more things. Kind of interested in you're a musician. You play guitar, you sing songs, you write songs. How long have you been doing this? When did you start doing this?
When I was going to Inuvik, there were a lot of young guys that brought their own guitars or their own instruments, like the fiddle, the banjo, mandolin, whatnot. So we would exchange music and just practice around with a couple of guys that were interested in music. Played in the local high school band, just to make ends meet, just because I couldn't work in garages. I have no desire to be a mechanic or anything. So I had to learn how to make quick money to supplement my weekly allowance that I was getting from the residents. So that helped me through to make extra money, play with the local bands that needed a bass player or rhythm guitars, just to learn the tricks of how bands work together. And when I graduated from high school, I started writing my own stuff to help me strengthen my Inuit language, because I was very weak in being able to speak my Inuit language just because I was brought up in the English world all my life, from the time I was 5 years old till I was an adult. So I started writing songs in Inuinuktitut, my local dialect, to help me preserve my language and to strengthen my language on communication with the elders on different songs formats that I started writing on. A lot of the music is about traveling out on the land and about harvesting and being with family. Those were the kinds of music that I was playing. Of course, when you're in high school, you're in a rock and roll band, but when you're a little older, you start mellowing out to folk blues or different formats that I'm doing a lot of folk blues stuff. So that's sort of my area of music.
The last part of our podcast, Roots and Hoots, is the Hoots part. And usually we ask, people, Hoots meaning something funny, a joke or a story. I know that you're a singer, songwriter. Maybe you have a tune, play a few bars?
No, I'm usually a boring person. I take things a bit too seriously, according to my grandmother. That I totally remember her telling me not to worry so much and not to concern myself too much around the world, to enjoy life. But that's the way I was brought up, and I don't have any anecdotes about my past or anything exciting ever happened in my past. Just because I've been working all my life to help my people and to put food on the table. But one of the things that I always enjoyed is trading the different dialects of the Inuit language that we have in Nunavut. We have 18 different dialects in Nunavut, and we have 4 main dialects that we use during meetings and conferences. So those are all exchanges of ideas that we've been sharing with other Inuit from outside our communities and outside our regions who speak other dialects of Inuit. And we exchange a lot of our music, and we certainly exchange a lot of ideas on how to look after ourselves and to maintain a strong family unity that we're so well to have amongst our people, and that Inuit are always looking after each other to help each other to move along. And I think that those are the kinds of things that I've always been working to better myself, to better my fellow Inuit.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Allan, for your time. We've been talking to Allan Makhagak, originally from Cambridge Bay in Nunavut. Allan, I wanted to thank you. Thank you for taking the time, and really, really good talking to you. And you have so much knowledge, so much abilities, being an interpreter for a long time, interpreter, translator. And the work that you continue to do for your people is admirable. And I really want to thank you very much for taking the time to do this.
Thank you very much. You too. Masi.
Thank you.
Roots and Hoots is produced by the Legacy of Hope Foundation. For more podcasts like this, please visit our website at legacyofhope.ca.